Hey there, greetings. Today, as we begin our adventure in the current moon cycle, the very first days following an intense solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo, pressuring us to get things right. Just as we begin this moon cycle, the waxing crescent moon, just beginning to be visible in the sky, joins up with Mars in early Scorpio. And not only that, but that Mars in early Scorpio is forming a square to Pluto, planet of power, truth, transformation, and some of the deeper psychological truths that we need to confront in order to ultimately do our healing work, but it's not always easy looking at what has been in the shadows or in our deeper unconscious. I'm Marina Orms here with your Astro Vibe for Wednesday, September 24th. Not only that, but today we have a grand trine, pretty close to exact, very close to exact, with the sun at 1 degree Libra, Uranus at 1 degree Gemini, Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, all air signs, and Neptune at 0, almost 1 degree Aries, forming a kite. So this is the kite we were talking about with the solar eclipse on Sunday, and I had a whole episode leading up to that eclipse on the kite and how it supports whatever intentions we are putting out there, negative or positive. So we want to really think about this kite energy. So it's mostly in air signs. The grand trine is in air. Now that the sun is in Libra, we have 3 planets in air signs, and that brings the energy of support, of acceleration, of bringing wind into the sails of our thinking and our communication and our verbal and mental processes. So, what comes to my mind, I'm sure there are lots of directions we could go with this, but what comes to my mind is the stories we are telling, the words we are using, the ways we are understanding and describing our current moment. So, thinking big picture in the collective, we have we we have like what's going on, right? Which is multifaceted, multi-layered, deep, intense in many ways. And then we have how we talk about it. And I think that one of the things that is shifting around the solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo on Sunday, the beginning of this moon cycle, is uh, our understanding and our framing and our narrative and our story and how that might be changing in the collective. So there's how you think about it and talk about it as an individual, and then there's how your community is thinking about it and talking about it, and then there's the nation, many in between, I'm sure, and how, as a whole, the nation is thinking about it and talking about it. And of course, we are 300 million, I think, people in the United States. So there's a lot of us and a lot of different perspectives and viewpoints, etc. But think about the general vibe of how we are seeing and viewing what is unfolding in the reality around us. And there is the possibility and the potential to have some shifts in understanding, shifts in the story that, of what it is we're going through, because you don't really get a sense of what that story is and how it will be told until something is over. And we are in the middle of a lot that's going on. So we don't have that ability to look back and have a whole story about what happened and why and who did it and all those things. So we're in the middle of it, and we our story is evolving. It's changing, sometimes day to day. So I think that this moment, this week, this eclipse is really a time of sort of where maybe some different ways of thinking, of talking about it, the story that's being told, the way we understand what's going on, the framing is, it's kind of it's pivoting. Is it in a good way, in a bad way? It probably depends where you are, but the point is that things are starting to find their place in terms of how we describe what's happening. And maybe, um, maybe some people's viewpoint is beginning to expand or see things differently. So you can interpret that in how you would like, but that's what I'm thinking about in terms of these energies. Now, also when we're talking about shifts in consciousness, this Mars third quarter square to Pluto, or waning square to Pluto in 1 degree Aquarius, is saying there is a future, and we are creating that future right now in how we think about things, how we believe, how we see ourselves, how we tell the story that we are in. And so it also emphasizes those qualities and where we need to, on a personal level, look at the bigger picture of what's important to us and how we want to tell that story, not just the story of what's happening in the news and, politics and society and all of that, but also what's happening in our own lives and how we see that and how that might be changing, how we see ourselves might be changing. And so it is time to ask yourself, where do I see myself headed in 10 years? Where, and where would you like to be in 10 years? Not just what you're afraid will happen, but where would you like to be in an ideal world? What would that look like? And how are you living your life now, or making decisions now to be in alignment with that ultimate outcome? And that's a lot of what I was talking about around the eclipse, is that we are making decisions consciously, unconsciously, however we are making those decisions, they are getting made. And so this is important time to ask yourself who you are, where you stand, what you care about, what matters to you, principles, ideals, these bigger picture things that are important to us. And so how do you see yourself fitting in that big picture? How do you see your role in creating the kind of world you want to live in? How are you making decisions right now on a very personal level about, how to be your best self in a way that helps to create that world? So the Mars Pluto square can bring some pressure that is needing to be released somehow, somewhere, that may be showing up for you in your personal life. Um, and it may show up for us all in the collective. But remember that these are opportunities to make decisions. So, what do we care about? Where do we stand as things happen or don't happen, or, um, feel significant, or make us feel things even? We are invited to make a decision. Where do you stand? What do you care about? And what is the direction that love wants to go, right? So, what does it feel like to live your life as a loving human being, here to love yourself and others and all creatures on the planet, and live your life in a way that expresses that love that you have for life and for those you care about? And so yesterday I was talking about how, with the moon in Libra, the sun's in Libra, of course, but with the moon in Libra, we want to think about just remembering that bigger picture of connection and what makes us feel connected to our fellow beings, intimate and otherwise, the people we care about. And that forms the foundation for us to connect to the need to see things from that perspective of what is the deeper truth that we need to see, that we need to acknowledge. And when we acknowledge that deeper truth, what does it make possible in terms of our healing, our transformation, the power that we really have? Pluto, Scorpio, all about power, the power that we really have to create the future and to live our lives in a way that is in alignment with our values, our principles, and a bigger spiritual picture. Right, not just religion, but what really speaks to our hearts and makes us feel like we belong here on the earth. So, thinking about that Scorpio energy, you might be feeling things you might need some space, some time to let yourself feel what you're feeling. Let these energies move through you. Give yourself the time and space you need. Make it sacred. So with Scorpio, we want to be thinking, we're doing we're doing ritual through our living our daily lives. So whether you have time to set aside for ritual or that's something important to you or not, you can still live your life, your daily life, with that reverence for, gratitude for each day and the people in your life, the beings in your life, the things you have, the possibilities you have before you. So have that sense of honor and reverence and gratitude for what is. Give yourself the time to let those deeper processes of transformation move through you. And remember that, this is all evolving and it's going to evolve, whether we like it or not. And so we get to figure out what is the invitation here? How can we be our best selves in response to these energies? So, Scorpio mystery. Hope that you get to experience some healing and transformation. Thanks for being here. I'm Marina Orms. You can book a reading with me at astrologyheals.com, and transformationalastrology.com is my member site. I have written books, so you can learn about them at astrologyheals.com if you want to learn more about the kind of astrology I do and why I talk about the things I do. Check out my books. And thanks for being here and subscribing. I will see you next time with more astrology for unshakable self care. Bye for now.